boy, 1987 to 88 was like the year of Freddy. I mean, Freddy was just exploding everywhere. He even put out his own pop album. Yeah, so this is like kind of spoken word Freddy set to cheesy backup singers. Ha-cha-cha-cha! Yep, you can find recordings of these on the internet. I don't think it was ever released on anything but vinyl, but yeah, Freddy's Greatest Hits. Go figure. And then one of my personal favorites, sadly they never did a music video, but I love the song, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, A Nightmare on My Street. There you go. So, yeah, Freddy was bigger than ever. Like, I mean, in the span of 4 short years, Freddy was just the man. I mean, it was amazing how huge the character became and how popular the character became. So, 1988 gave us A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, the middle chapter in what I consider the sort of Freddy trilogy of 3, 4, and 5. And, yeah, it basically picks up not long after the end of the third one, and kind of takes things off from there. So let's talk about it today on the Multimedia Chronicles. So Nightmare on Elm Street 4 has quite a sizable cast because we've got the survivors from Nightmare on Elm Street 3 in the form of Kristen, Kincaid, and Joey. And then you've got all these new characters as well. You've got Alice, and I can't remember any of the characters' names. Anyway, you got Alice, you got her sort of kung fu brother, you've got one of their friends who's really into fitness and keeping in shape and hates bugs. And then you've got their other kind of nerdy friend who's just, you know, the typical bookworm, really good at school and loves to learn and stuff. So quite a sizable cast of characters. So it starts off with Kristen. By the way, Kristen has been recast in this. It's no longer Patricia Arquette playing Kristen. It's actually Tuesday Night. Apparently Patricia Arquette was just not available for whatever reason. I guess had other commitments and wasn't able to do it. So I guess New Line didn't want to wait for her, so they went ahead with the movie and just recast the character. So, okay, strange. So Tuesday Night, I mean, she does fine, honestly. I do prefer Patricia Arquette's version of the character, but I think Tuesday did a fine job considering, you know, I'm sure there was a little bit of pressure on her for that character. You know, sort of picking up where Patricia Arquette left off. So anyway, it starts off with Kristen, you know, they of course defeated Freddy at the end of the third one. I should mention, the end of the third one also, we learned something interesting about Freddy that we did not know previously. Namely that not only is he killing the kids of, you know, the parents who killed him, but he's also capturing their souls and actually trapping their souls within his own kind of being. And the ending of Nightmare 3 left that kind of unresolved, where, you know, we had Nancy's psychiatrist friend and her father, yes, John Saxon came back as well, basically burying Freddy's bones in the junkyard where his body had been hidden away in the trunks of one of the cars. So they bury him and they use holy water to consecrate the corpse. And there's, of course, this sequence where the skeleton comes to life and starts attacking them. You might say, well, wait a minute, I thought Freddy couldn't come into the real world. And it's like, well, okay, they're dreaming. Done. We just don't think about it too much. We got to see a cool Ray Harryhausen-esque Freddy skeleton attacking the doctor guy and killing John Saxon. So anyway, this kind of picks up where that left off, where Kristen keeps going back to the nightmare house, and she keeps seeing a little girl there. And by the way, interesting bit of trivia, the little girl that she encounters in Nightmare 4 is the same actress, the same little girl who Kristen encountered at the beginning of Nightmare 3, in that wonderful sequence where she's trying to escape and trying to rescue the girl, and the girl turns into a desiccated corpse in her arms. Very terrifying, horrifying moment. So Kristen keeps going back to that house, and she keeps seeing the little girl, and she gets scared, and she pulls Kincaid and Joey in, and they're like, you got to stop doing this, because just the fact that you keep thinking about him and you keep being afraid of him is going to bring him back. He's gone, we defeated him, get over it, move on with your life. So what ends up happening is she does end up essentially bringing him back, I guess, through her fear. Now, this is a theme that has recurred throughout the Nightmare series, is that Freddy's power is your fear of him. The more afraid you are, the more people who are afraid of him, the more people think about him, the stronger he is. I mean, because he lives in the dream world. He lives in the realm of the mind. So the mind is everything in the dream world. So he's literally using their fear to resurrect himself. So we have this scene in the junkyard with Kincaid and Kristen. Basically, Kristen gets away, and Kincaid has to face Freddy. And you see the skeleton sort of unburied, like it just explodes. The dirt is all gone, and the skeleton reforms itself and comes back up. And it's actually some really cool effects where you see the flesh coming back onto the bones, and the organs reinflating, and the eyeballs popping in and stuff. Very cool practical effects for that, I have to say. And this was one of the things that always impressed me about Nightmare 4 was, again, we're getting into even more elaborate and creative dream sequences, and the effects work in them is just fantastic. I mean, they really did some amazing creative work on the effects in these. Before we get any further into the plot, I should also mention this is the one and only Nightmare on Elm Street movie that I actually saw in theaters. Yes, because for whatever reason, here in Canada, Nightmare on Elm Street 4 was not rated R. It was the first one that was not rated R. It was actually rated 14A, which is basically the Canadian version of PG-13. So I was 15 at the time, so I was able to go see it in the theater. I was so stoked. I was like, oh my god, I can see a Nightmare on Elm Street movie in the theater totally legitimately. I don't even have to sneak in or anything, or pretend to be 18. It's that's how I got in to see RoboCop, by the way. I was 15 when I went to see RoboCop. I guess it was in the same year or year before. And we just pretended to be 18. That's a story for another time, perhaps. But so I was stoked. So as I mentioned before, my previous best friend and I kind of gone our separate ways. So I had new friends. So one of my best friends at the time, who had actually never seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, I asked, hey, you want to go check it out? I was going to go see it. And he's like, yeah, sure. I haven't seen any of the other ones. I'm like, really? You haven't seen any of them? He's like, no, I don't really watch horror movies. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So we went to see it in the theater. And he actually found it more funny than scary. And to be honest, that's kind of true. Because we started to get the more wisecracking Freddy in Nightmare 3. In this one, he's full-blown wisecracking Freddy. I mean, he's he's still pure evil, obviously, but he's someone who really enjoys being evil, and he really likes to, torment his victims and play with them and mess with their heads and make lots of wisecracks along the way. So we got lots more quotable Freddy lines in this, like, how's that for a wet dream, when he has the sexy lady suck Joey into the waterbed. And we finally got a Freddy versus a waterbed scene. Like, how long had we been waiting for that one, And then, when he's taunting the nerdy girl, he's like, want to suck face? And then he literally sucks the life right out of her by, giving her basically a kiss of death, where he locks his lips on hers and literally just sucks the life right out of her until she's just this inverted corpse kind of thing, her eyeballs sticking out, and pretty nasty. And then, so anyway, Freddy ends up being resurrected and tormenting the kids. So the first order of business is to take care of the remaining Dream Warriors. So he takes out Kristen, he takes out Kincaid, he takes out Joey. So that completely clears the way for the new characters. Got Alice and all of her friends. So I have to say, I really like Alice a lot. Not only do I think the actress who plays her is just absolutely beautiful, but I really like her story arc. How she starts off very timid and meek and unsure of herself, and very daydreamy. Like she's constantly having these little daydream moments where she says the perfect thing for that situation, or she tells off that person she really wanted to tell off. But of course, it's all in her mind. It's all fantasy. I kind of related to that, to be honest, because in my high school years, I was really unsure of myself and very shy, very withdrawn. Believe it or not, I know it's hard to believe, but this is true. So that was very much me. I mean, she was like me in girl form. That's kind of a disturbing image. Don't picture that the way you're probably picturing it, because that's just no, that's just weird. But no, like in terms of the daydreaming and the if only I'd said this kind of thing, that's my freaking teenage life right there. I mean, so I definitely related to Alice on that level, especially still being a teenager at the time. I was like, wow, she's like doing a lot of the things that I did when I was a teenager, just kind of fantasizing about how it would have gone in a perfect scenario if I had some balls. But so anyway, so in terms of so we had we had Kristen, of course, who could pull people into her dreams. So that was her dream power, and this is something the Dream Warriors really got into, was the whole idea of dream powers. Well, the Dream Master kind of takes that a step or two further, because with Alice can actually absorb the dream powers of others. So her friends, as they die at the hand of Freddy, she gains their powers. So their dream powers. So like her brother is very into martial arts and stuff like that. So when he gets killed by Freddy, she takes on his martial arts abilities. When Kristen dies, she actually directly tells her, like she pulls her into her dream when she's fighting Freddy, and she's like, no, you have to wake up, and then she slaps her across the face, and poor Alice has no idea what the frick is going on. I mean, she's just suddenly in Kristen's dream, she's like, what's going on? And then Kristen slaps her across the face, and the look on poor Alice's face was like, like, what did you do? I felt so bad for her in that. And then it's like she slaps her across the face, and then Kristen immediately hugs her. It's like, I'm sorry. But I mean, she's saying she's sorry because she didn't mean to. She just kind of instinctively pulled her into the dream. I guess because, she was the first one she kind of latched onto when she reached out in fear. And and then she was just on it. And she felt bad for having pulled her into that situation and involving her in the whole thing with Freddy. And, so as she's being pulled into the depths of hell by Freddy, she's like, you're gonna need my dream power, and she just just blasts her dream power to Alice, and Alice wakes up and realizes that she's she can feel aspects of Kristen within her being, and for example, Kristen's taken up smoking just to kind of deal with her stress. So when she dies, Alice starts smoking, having been a non-smoker prior to that. She just kind of starts smoking and doesn't even think of it. It's like one moment she's in the girls' washroom and she lights up a cigarette and she's just like, wait a minute, I don't smoke, And that's when we get the first hints that not only is she gaining the powers of her friends, their dream powers, but she's also taking on some of their characteristics. So, for example, she was very meek and shy. When she takes on her brother's characteristics, she becomes a lot more confident and sure of herself. And a lot of these characteristics help her to shape herself into the person that she's always wanted to be. So I really liked that character arc a lot, and I really liked the character of Alice a lot, and enjoyed how that was developed over the course of the movie. And then when we get into the fifth one, it's developed further. But I should mention also one thing. There was so much to cover with Nightmare 3 that I overlooked a few things I realized when I was reviewing the footage. One of the things we got about additional things about Freddy we got, in addition to the fact that he's stealing the souls, we also got his origin story. We found out about Amanda Kruger for the first time, and in fact the ghost of Amanda Kruger was kind of guiding Nancy's friend to show him that he needed to consecrate the bones and such to destroy Freddy, which of course only worked temporarily because this is a horror franchise. But we found out about the whole thing about the nun being trapped in the ward with the 100 lunatics, basically, and raped over the holiday weekend until, they finally brought her out, and then she found out she was pregnant. So, and that's where Freddy came from, the bastard son of 100 maniacs, which of course, biologically speaking, doesn't really make sense, because only one sperm is going to fertilize the egg. It's not going to be 100 sperms fertilizing the egg and DNA from all 100 of them. No, it's just going to be one. So it'll be technically one maniac. But we won't get too technical about that. It's not as dramatic, dramatic license and all that. But a couple of minor issues I had with Nightmare 4, and this was even at the time when I saw it in the theater, was, one of the big ones being it wasn't particularly scary. It had some great creative dream sequences, and I really liked the cast in it, and I really liked the characters. It was great to see the old characters from Dream Warriors show up, and also I really liked the new cast, as short-lived as they were. Only a couple survivors by the end. But it just wasn't particularly scary. Oh, excuse me. I'm not crying, I'm tired. So, and my friend who, I was intending to take to see a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, hoping to kind of recreate the experience of showing it to my other friend for the first time and enjoy him getting all scared. But it wasn't scary. It was almost more of a horror fantasy where, what the hell is that? Fridge is making weird noises. More of a horror fantasy with there's horrific elements, there's some gory bits in it, but really not a lot of blood in this one. It's a very not bloody Nightmare on Elm Street movie, considering it's about a guy with razors on his fingers. So we have, the fitness chick, for example, she doesn't like bugs. So Freddy literally has her transformed into a giant cockroach and then has her in a little roach motel, and he crushes the roach motel and it blorches out the side. But the scene where she's being transformed, where she's lifting the weights, and then Freddy comes along and pushes down, and then her arms snap in half, and then the insect legs start to come out. That was pretty horrifying. That was really gut-wrenching, but again, not very bloody. It was more just the bug emerging from her skin kind of thing, and then all the other death scenes weren't really very horrifying. I think the only one who actually really got stabbed was Kincaid when he's confronting Freddy shortly after he's resurrected in the junkyard. And this was one of the issues I had, just from a directorial standpoint, was with the previous nightmares, the fear came from not knowing where Freddy was. Basically, when Freddy was stalking one of the characters, you'd be following the character and being afraid along with that character, not knowing where Freddy was, where he was going to pop up next. But the scene in the junkyard, it just kind of threw me because Kincaid disappears into the junkyard somewhere. He's basically, trying to get the jump on Freddy. And we're following Freddy. So we're so Freddy's just come back. It's supposed to be this big moment where it's this big, powerful, evil character is back, and, he's really scary and stuff. But we're following Freddy around the junkyard as he's looking for Kincaid. And that just seemed really awkward to me. And it's not scary at all. You don't follow the killer. The whole fear comes from not knowing where the killer is and where the killer is going to strike next. But, one might argue, this was meant to be the flip side because it was Kincaid trying to get the on Freddy. And I get that. It's just, I don't know. I honestly don't know how they could have done it differently, per se, because of what that scene was. But it seemed odd to me to go straight from Freddy's resurrection into following Freddy around looking for Kincaid, because it just sapped all the fear and suspense out of that. I mean, there's really no suspense wondering where Kincaid's going to pop up out of. I mean, that's maybe a little bit for Freddy, but I'm sure Freddy was not concerned at all. So, I mean, Kincaid manages to get the drop on him, but I mean, this is Freddy. I mean, he's not going to die in his first scene. Come on. It's his movie. Yeah, so they talk about how, in the extras, for example, how it wasn't really until the third one that they realized that the franchise was more about Freddy than anything else, that Freddy was the franchise. So I think that's why, by the time Nightmare 4 came out, they'd really embraced that and really focused more on the Freddy aspect of it, hence why, we have the Freddy's Greatest Hits album and stuff like that. So, I mean, overall, I definitely enjoy Nightmare 4. It was the last one that I owned on VHS back in the day. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 were the ones I watched over and over again the most, and the ones I became most familiar with, which is why I babbled about them so much. But I always liked it. I mean, I was disappointed, of course, that they recast Patricia Arquette. I felt that her performance as Kristen carried a more emotional weight than Tuesday Night's performance, which was more kind of, I don't know, casual, I guess. I don't know, maybe casual isn't the word. I don't know, just not as much emotional depth to it, I didn't think. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. I mean, it just kind of, that's how things worked out. But, Nightmare 3 is definitely the superior of the two. But Nightmare 4 is not a complete write-off. I know a lot of people don't like it at all. Like, they just hate it. But, I mean, we're into that era of the Freddy movies anyway. Like, the last 3 or 4, fans are really divided on. Like, I know a lot of you guys are probably going to leave comments like, wow, how can you like that piece of shit? It's horrible. Then others will be like, yeah, good to see some Nightmare 4 love. All right. But, but, I mean, whatever. I mean, honestly, I like all of them for one reason or another. There's some good in all of them, I think. I don't think any of them are a total write-off. But some are definitely better than others. As far as the trilogy of 3, 4, and 5, yeah, I think 3 is the... Honestly, I think they kind of go in that order, is going from best to worst. We got 3, 4, and 5. Is 5 a total write-off? I know a lot of people think it is. I don't think it is, but we'll talk about that one next time. Now, I should give an honorable mention here, big honorable mention, to Freddy's Nightmares, A Nightmare on Elm Street, the series, because that also debuted the same year as Nightmare 4. As I said, it was just the freaking year of Freddy. I mean, if you were a Freddy fan, there was so much Freddy stuff that year. It was just amazing. So Freddy's Nightmares lasted for 2 22-episode seasons, so 44 episodes total, so the 88-89 season and then the 89-90 season. In my area, we only got the first season. There was a lot of controversy surrounding the show for the blood and guts and the violence. I mean, it was quite gory for the era. I remember in my area, I think it was shown at like 1 in the morning or something. It was just like relegated to the graveyard hours. So I would usually put my VCR on timer and record it and then watch it later. Actually, I would record it while I was watching it because I was a night owl anyway, so I just stay up and watch it. But, so I caught it whenever I could. I taped it whenever I could. And, I really wish they would put a DVD set out. Now, this Blu-ray set does have episodes 2 and 3 of Freddy's Nightmares as extras. Now, Freddy's Nightmares was basically an anthology horror series for the most part, with Freddy as the host of it. So he would come on at the beginning and at the ad breaks and whatnot to give his little wisecracks relating to the story. But there were a few stories that actually did have Freddy in the story. I'd say maybe about a quarter of the episodes of each season would actually feature Freddy in the main story. And honestly, a lot of the times those were the best ones. Because, I mean, you just can't beat a good Freddy story, and some of them were a lot of fun. I remember the very first episode was actually directed by Tobe Hooper. It was called No More Mr. Nice Guy, and it showed the actual events leading up to Freddy being burned to death by the angry mob of parents. So we got to see his trial, and we got to see the parents tracking him down and stuff. Now, It does play out a little bit differently in the TV version than it did in the movie version, in terms of relating it to when Nancy's mother is telling the story. So things have been retconned a little bit in that, but the end result is the same. What is it? There was another one. I think it was the last episode of the first season called "Safe Sex," which is basically about this kind of nerdy guy who had the hots for this gothy chick who was just freaking gorgeous, and Freddy was just basically after both of them. So he was after the nerdy kid just for whatever, and then after the goth girl, because the goth girl was kind of obsessed with Freddy. So yeah, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. But that one was really fun, and I should mention it also had George Lazenby, one-time James Bond, as the psychiatrist that the nerdy kid was going to talk about his problems. But and there were some other good ones too. There was one called Freddy's Tricks and Treats, which was like a Halloween episode. I remember that one being really good. There was a handful of them released on VHS back in the day, maybe about 6 episodes. A couple from the second season, like a few from the first season. But we've never had a DVD release of it here. It was repeated a few years back on Chiller, which is a U.S. Specialty channel. I think a lot of people recorded it off of there. But come on, like just Mill Creek or somebody, like please just give us a complete series. A Warner Archive even. I mean, just give us a complete series set, please. It's like the only Nightmare on Elm Street thing that is not available, and we want it. Gold darn it. I really liked Freddy's Nightmares. I mean, a lot of people are mixed on it because, well, to be honest, it was kind of a mixed bag. I mean, some episodes were really bad, but some episodes were really good. But it was marred by a few things. I mean, one of which being low budget, so they couldn't really go too over the top with dream sequences and such. But it would often have like just some terrific guest stars. Like I remember Brad Pitt guest stars in one of the episodes, when he was just starting out in his career. Jeffrey Combs is in an episode that, you probably know from Reanimator and lots of other stuff. I don't know, I can't remember any others off the top. There was a bunch. There's always some familiar faces in there. Oh, actually, the third episode, which is on the Blu-ray set, starred Lori Petty and Yvette Mimieux, she played Dizzy Flores in the Starship Troopers movie, and Lori Petty, of course, was Tank Girl. So they're both in the third episode. So pretty cool stuff. Anyway, so if you want a taste of it, you'll see a couple episodes on there. I should mention also one thing that was introduced in Freddy's Nightmares, which later actually worked its way into the movies, and this is one of the reasons I actually do consider Freddy's Nightmares to be part of the overall canon, despite some slight discrepancies in the continuity. The whole idea of Springwood being part of the nightmare, essentially. Like, once you're in Springwood, or if you're born in Springwood, you can never leave. Like, the town itself is a character, in a way, where a lot of the stories involve people trying to leave Springwood, trying to get out of Springwood, and they can't. Every time they try, something stops them. It's like the town just won't let them leave. And some might say, like, that's partly Freddy's influence. Maybe it's something else. Maybe there's more supernatural goings-on in that town than just Freddy. But that's something that is explored throughout the series. So I liked that aspect of it, how it really expanded on the lore and made it more about, it's not just about Freddy, it's about Springwood, the town, and just all the weird goings-on in the town. So pretty cool stuff. I hope it gets a DVD release someday. Alrighty, so that's it for basically 1988, the year of Freddy. Holy moly, so much stuff. Yeah, and then the following year, when Nightmare 5 came out, there was even more stuff that year too. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. Oh, I should mention also Nightmare 4 also has a music video. Now, this is not specifically of a song used in the movie, although I think it actually does play over the end credits, come to think of it. There was a rap group in the 80s called the Fat Boys, and it was literally 3 fat guys who would do, just sort of feel good, have fun rap music. And they did one called Are You Ready for Freddy? And you can find the music video for that on the extras here. Yeah. Alrighty, well, I think this one's been long and rambling enough, so I will bid you adieu for now, and we'll see you tomorrow for my take on Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. Oh, one other thing, I guess I should quickly wrap up Nightmare 4, good and proper. Nightmare 4, a lot of fans have said, could have been where the series ended, because it actually wraps everything up that was kind of left hanging from the third one. In particular, how they defeat Freddy, where Alice essentially uses the combined dream powers of all her friends who died over the course of the movie to have an all-out battle with Freddy, and the trapped souls themselves actually help her and trap Freddy and basically rip him apart and set themselves free. So, I mean, a lot of people said, well, that could have been a good place to end it right there, because all the souls he trapped are now free. The end. And Freddy is destroyed. So, yeah, I mean, it could very well have ended there, and it would have been a perfectly satisfying ending for the series. But it didn't. We got 3 more movies, so that's what we're going to talk about. And I think that's pretty much the last thing I wanted to say about it. I know there was a lot to cover in this one. I just kind of went stream of consciousness style and barfed all my thoughts at you. Hope you enjoyed. All right. We'll see you next time. So a quick thank you to my Patreon sponsors, especially Kyle Pellegrini and Get Your Gorgeous On, the always wonderful e-mag maintained by Michelle O'Toole and Simon Hedger. And we'll see you next time. Until then, thanks for watching, and sayonara. Oh, wait. Chocolate bar. Chocolate bar. Well, let's see. Fitness chick got turned into a giant cockroach and crushed. So we'll go with the crispy crunch, because she kind of got crunched crispily. All right, we'll see you next time.